Okay, so this is the study guide for test one. And really, there are two things that I want to encourage you to practice before you go in to take the test. And then other than those two things, really what's important is to review the vocabulary words. So I have created a study guide that has all the vocabulary words that you should look up, make sure you understand, and be familiar with. And then also I have a list of the items in StatCrunch that you'll want to know how to do. So be sure to look for the study guide. It'll be in the same place that you found this video. So the two things that I would like to go over have to do with the empirical rule. So if I had a bell-shaped curve and this is my mean, I would recommend that you practice drawing this so that when you take the test, you can quickly draw it on your scratch paper and be ready to go. I mean, you're not allowed to bring it to the test with you, so that would be considered cheating. So, but what you can do is you can practice it so that when you sit down to take your test, you can immediately draw it and then use it for the rest of the test. The empirical rule is actually stated in your formula sheet, which is on the home page of our Canvas course, right near where the syllabus is. And in words, it tells you the empirical rule. So the deal is, if I have a normally shaped distribution and I go one standard deviation to the left and right, so we use -1 just to represent that that's the left side. So here my standard deviation would be 0. I'm 0 units away from the mean. Then this amount equates to 68%. So 68% of all your figures, of all your data points, are going to fall within one standard deviation of the mean. So if that's 68%, then that means that because this has total symmetry, that means that this is 34 and this is 34. And this is the part that I would recommend that you practice, because once you have this displayed, then it becomes really easy to answer all the questions. All right, so what about 2 standard deviations away? So the empirical rule states that 2 away gives you a total of 95%. All right, so what does that mean for each of these individual boxes? Well, if the whole thing is 95 and these two in the middle are 68, then 95 minus 68 is what? 27. And if these have symmetry, then they're exactly the same. So 27 divided by 2 is 13.5. So each of these would be 13.5%. 13.5%. So you can double check it by adding them up. Make sure all these together equal 95. All right, so then we have 3 standard deviations away. And what the empirical rule says is that 99.7% of all your data points will fall within 3 standard deviations from the mean. So if these 4 were 95, and then you add those 2 and you get to 99.7, then that's a difference of 4.7. And if I divide that by 2, then that's 2.35%, 2.35%. And if all of this is 99.7, then I'm left with 0.3, and I split that into 2, then these would each be 0.15%. Okay, and this is, I know this seems like kind of a lot of work at first, but if you have 2 or 3 questions that say something like, oh, the mean was, 150 and the standard deviation was 10, and then you just sit there and label it, then all of a sudden you're ready for any question. If they say, what percent fell between 150 and 170, you can just go, oh, 34 plus 13.5. How about from 140 to 180? You could just go 34, 34, 13 and a half, 2.35 and just add those up and get your percentage really fast. So I recommend that you learn how to make this. These numbers are given to you on your formula sheet, but they just say it in sentences. They don't give you the actual picture. Okay, and then the other part that I would recommend that you work on, and again, you can find this in your formula sheet, but it's a little bit of a scavenger hunt, would be the mean for a sample versus a population. So know these symbols. I mean, this is going to matter in probably 3 or 4 questions. If you don't know them, you could easily make a mistake and get them wrong. And if you do know them, then they're not hard questions, and that'll give you some nice easy points. So for a sample, the mean, we use X bar. For population, we use mu. Remember, population always uses Greek letters, and samples use English letters, although I know the bar is kind of weird, but anyways. All right, so how about standard deviation? For a sample, we use S. For population, we use this sigma, I think is what that is. How about for a variance? For a variance, we use S squared. And I like to, even though you can see all of these in your formula sheet, it's nice to have it in a picture like this, because then it's easy to see the relationship between a standard deviation and a variance. Standard deviation, if I square it, I'll get my variance. If I have the variance and take the square root, I'll get my standard deviation. Now, what was interesting about the population, standard deviation, and variance on StatCrunch, that you had to do the unadjusted for both of these. And those were the only ones, right? If you're doing a mean, it doesn't matter. On StatCrunch, you choose mean. It didn't matter that it was a population or a sample. Range, Q1, those types of things. The only thing that mattered were these two. The standard deviation and variance for a population was unadjusted. So other than that, go ahead and take a look at my study guide, where I've written all the vocabulary words and all the different ways that you will need to use StatCrunch on this test. Work through the review problems. I would recommend doing the review at least 2 or 3 times if you could. Look at key words in the instructions, because it's not going to go in order. Right now your review does go in order, so it's easy to go, well, we didn't do linear regression until the end, so I know if I'm on question 5 that somehow I'm not going to be doing stat linear or stat regression, simple linear. But the problem is, on the test, everything is scrambled. So you could get a linear regression question, right at the beginning without necessarily knowing it. And everybody's test is scrambled in a different way. So it's important as you're practicing on the review questions to pay attention to keywords in the question that would make you know what to use in StatCrunch or what it is that it's looking for. You may bring in your formula sheet. That's allowable. It should not have any of your own writing on it. And other than that, I've sent an email that hopefully gives you all the instructions that you need, but feel free to contact me if you have any questions or trouble with it. And good luck to you. I hope you do really well.